Welcome to New Clip. I'm Chad Rutherman.
I'm JJ Artemis.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today we're going to be talking about the Talos Principle, which was released in 2014 on Windows and Linux, and probably Mac as well. Yeah. OS X, got it. And then later it was ported to both Android and PS4, strangely.
The PS4?
Yeah, it's on PS4.
Oh wait, I already knew about this.
You saw the box copy.
I did see the box copy.
And it was developed by Croatian developer Croteam. And before we unpack the Talos Principle, we gotta look at the return address on that package and see that it says Croteam and just be super confused for a minute. Because Croteam's previous work has pretty much entirely consisted of Serious Sam games, which is weirdly the second time that we've talked about it on the podcast. But it's just a very fast-paced arena shooter that is known for being incredibly dumb. And they're good, but they're dumb. You just shoot bullets and things. And this game is decidedly not dumb.
They had lucked out with the name of Croteam, because if you had not been here to tell me about this link, I would have just believed that would be like a believable name for a group of people attempting to make like a sci-fi video game about life transcending into the future.
Yeah. Croteam does seem like the fact that they're Croatian sort of throws a wrench in that like association of being like, because that's why they're called Croteam. Either way, this game, the Talos Principle that we're talking about, is also a first-person game, and if you're familiar with these Serious Sam games at all, plays like it's very obviously the same engine, where you move incredibly fast, and
Oh, so it wasn't like a robotic thing?
Well, it is in this game in terms of like how it's done, but like Serious Sam always moved at a really high velocity.
Links.
And it was just like a way to make the game feel more kinetic. Huh. In this game, we'll discuss the movement speed because I know it's kind of a contentious topic. But largely, though, it is a puzzle game. Beyond like all of the layers of artifice that the game has in front of everything, you do predominantly just go from room to room and solve puzzles. And I want to say that it is almost like a worthy successor to a game like Portal. Because the game itself uses just different gadgets in like increasing complexity, and as you solve prescribed puzzles in rooms, in like a ruined like scientific facility.
I'd say that's a fair comparison, but a little bit of an overstatement. In my opinion.
I think it's a worthy successor. I don't think it is as good as Portal.
No.
But I think that in terms of, like, puzzle games to come out after Portal, this is a totally acceptable...
Top tier.
Yeah. Game in the first-person puzzle genre.
I was worried you were going to open with the Portal comparison, because that's sort of one of... I knew right after the time that I spent with this game that all over the internet, people were going to be talking about this game in relation to Portal, and I really believe that a lot of things that made Portal such an amazing game within its context are predominantly not shared between it and the Talos Principle. I think both games sort of bring, for one, like an extremely diverse tone. Like they're using similar systems for different ends.
Right.
So I thought in a lot of different contexts that the comparison wouldn't be as informing, outside of like just the mechanical level of you're a guy in a chamber trying to do weird.
Right. I didn't even like think about how similar they were on a base level until I was like halfway through, and I was like, I guess this is kind of like a similar setup to Portal.
Yeah, I think
so. Yeah, it feels very different to Portal, I think.
Yeah. On a stringent mechanical and like design standpoint, the games clearly share a similar like goal, but in terms of like visuals, tone, the actual construction of the puzzles, all of that is extremely different. It's like a game in the same genre that is just a different game. Yeah. Because that's what it is. But Portal sort of, at the very least, like put the first-person puzzle game into the forefront.
It's like how you can't make like an open world RPG without people comparing it to Skyrim.
Right.
Portal is just like that big of a behemoth of a game.
Mm-hmm.
It just has way fewer copycats.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things as you were discussing, and like how the tone and aesthetic differs so significantly from Portal, is that Portal is a game where you could discuss philosophy in Portal as like a funny side note, but the Talos Principle takes philosophy and it puts it. It hands it to you as if you were in a philosophy classroom.
Yes.
It does not attempt to, through any subtle means, make you think about a problem. It just proposes a problem.
Yeah.
It asks you questions to make you think philosophically.
Right.
Straight up Socratic.
Yep. Please go on, please.
But what, Socrates?
Oh, I thought you were starting a sentence. No, yeah, please inform us about Socrates.
No, it's the Socratic method. They literally just have a character whose almost entire purpose is to just sit here and attempt to literally pose philosophical questions to you about personhood and proofs of consciousness and all sorts of other things that I've studied at one point or another.
Well, see, that's the thing that I think is really... I think that the best thing this game did in terms of... because, I mean, like, the game doesn't try and hide itself as, like, a philosophical game.
Oh, yeah. It's not subtle. I was prepared to, like, go into this game based on the marketing of it, expecting for there to be some kind of, like, subtle twist and lots of other things that weren't hinted at. Nope, this game...
I'm pretty sure the tagline of the game is, like, the Talos Principle, a philosophical puzzler, or something.
Well, that's not subtle in presentation of philosophy. I meant subtle like, there's a conspiracy going around here, and you're going to have to figure out about it, as like just one example of sort of the general subtleness. In the same way that Portal was subtle in the way it slowly began to progress the sort of sinisterness of the presentation of things that are going on around you. Mm-hmm. I expected that to be present here, but instead, like, all of the issues that it brought up, all of its tones that it was trying to present were just consistent, flat, constant, and loud.
Yeah. Yeah, subtlety is now... like, there's a subtle plot line that requires a lot of sort of, like, digging and reasoning on your part to kind of figure out what exactly was going on outside of the simulation. Spoiler alert, you're in a computer.
Really?
Wow. More or less immediately apparent. And if it isn't immediately apparent, like, by the time you hit the halfway point, you're pretty positive. But it is the story of the people in the real world. And that's what surprised me the most about this game. I was just telling them before we started the podcast. I loved this game, and I kind of really didn't expect to. I kind of thought that I was just going to play it, enjoy it, maybe, and at the end, hopefully have some interesting things to say about it. Mm-hmm. But it ended up... It's definitely in the top 5 games that I've played this year. It is July, so we're only halfway through. 5 games is kind of a lot, but...
I mean, statistically, it's like in the top 10 at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I've played a number of games this year. Either way, though, I really enjoyed playing this game, and the storyline behind the main plot had all of these, like, very genuine human moments in it, and it was surprisingly effective in how, like, emotional it like, got me.
This game simulates forum conversations better than any other piece of media.
I would agree to that. I think I had the experience that Chad thought he would have.
Right.
Like, I thought this game was pretty good, and I enjoyed my time with it, but I think my biggest issue with the game was its pacing. Mm. It was I felt like the game started out as kind of just like a first-person puzzle game, and then like I didn't really like feel like I stumbled upon like the narrative, and like wasn't really all that interested in what was going on until I exited the first warehouse A or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
for the sake of the podcast, I'll probably be referring to them as like World A.
Okay, World A.
Yeah.
And I did everything in World A before I ever left it.
Of course.
So I feel like the game should have gotten, or would benefit from getting the player to that point where they've stumbled upon like the greater picture sooner. because like for the first part, I just felt like I was playing a puzzle game,
Right.
and like it was kind of like just a bunch of puzzles in a row for the longest time. But like once I actually like stumbled upon the tower and all that intriguing stuff, I was like really motivated to keep playing.
Oh yeah, the tower was like seeing the tower for the first time was easily the high point of the game for
you
me.
get that moment where you like look up. It's like the opening scene in the original Star Wars of the Star Destroyer, like slowly taking up the whole camera. You like start looking up and then you're like,
and it's got the big swirly thing. In the
it
sky.
just keeps going. Yeah.
So yeah, like the game,
It's really powerful.
In the game's defense, you have enough pieces to leave World A after like maybe the first 3 chambers,
Which is what I did immediately.
Yeah, so there will be people who do that and stumble upon the narrative sooner.
It's what I should have done.
The larger narrative threads.
I feel like the way that this game is set up and the way that games of its ilk are set up, it makes you, as a player, want to just plow through everything in order. Especially in the early game when things aren't particularly, like... There aren't any enormous roadblocks in your path.
No.
There are a few difficult puzzles in the first world, particularly in the later levels, A6, A7. But it doesn't get really hard until much later.
Until you start getting all the red pieces.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But, I don't know, because I didn't have an issue with the pacing. The way that I treated the game, because the moment you enter the tower, you come across the first, like, red sigil puzzle. Mm-hmm. And when you come across it, it puts up a thing in the top left that's like, floor 1, and these are the sigil pieces you need. And then at that point, you already have, like, world B, here are the green pieces you need, and, like, your next power-up, here's the yellow pieces you need. And so I ended up treating the game like a checklist. I would go into a world, I would find a world that had pieces to complete the next thing on the top left bar. Mm-hmm. Right. I would do those, and then leave and go do that thing. And that probably drug out, like, my total time spent with the game, but I always felt like I was accomplishing something.
Yeah.
So I feel like that really aids with the pacing.
The pacing of gameplay is fine, even though I did kind of feel like there were, like, way too many of one kind of puzzle in a row sometimes.
Yeah.
But pacing of gameplay, I think is fine. It's like that pacing of that narrative. I think they should have sprinkled more in to pull you along early.
That's sort of
because like I didn't feel like I was like into this game till I'd played like 5 hours of it.
Right. Yeah, I can't speak for the narrative in that situation.
And I mean, yeah, like I'm someone who puts a lot of stock in the narrative of the game. So
well, I mean, the narrative of this game really got to me.
To me too, but it took me forever to get to it.
Near the end, you find these like terminal logs that are of like blog posts and emails between people who know that they're at the end of their life, and the way that that's written is just like there are moments that were like genuinely heart-wrenching of people sending emails to their loved ones being like, I'm going to attempt to make it to you. I don't know if I will. Because you don't know the nature of whatever like cataclysm is going on. You just know that something is happening and everyone is basically ready to die.
Right. And you described all like that stuff as genuine earlier, and I think that's like completely true. Because like the stuff that I found the log entries that I found the most interesting on all the computer terminals were like of the people from the Ian whatever labs or corporation or whatever.
Yeah.
And it all did. It felt like really human and genuine, and I was interested to see where that was leading.
Yeah, I do like all of that, but I know we kind of like edged on talking about like the actual puzzle construction.
Yeah.
But before we go into that, I did at least JJ.
Yeah.
You have a degree.
Yes.
In philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and you can call me out if this is an unfair assumption. Mm-hmm. I don't want to make an ass out of you and me. But I assume that you were familiar with the majority of these concepts prior to going into the game.
Yes. However,
Okay.
the game did... I did sort of get knocked on my ass at one point because I didn't take the game seriously at the start. The very first time that you interact with Milton, he gives you, like, an arbitrary personhood question, and it says that it says, like, time is a factor in answering the questions or something.
Right.
So, when I was at that point still sort of engaging with it, less like something that was trying to teach me about personhood definitions, and more like a video game where I was worried the computer would shock me if I waited for longer than 5 seconds. So I took like the very, very first quest that ends up being incredibly important later in the game, just sort of like offhandedly with barely any consideration, and ended up regretting it later once it became increasingly clear that like Milton was an AI and all this is extremely important, and he's trying to prove that you're conscious and all this stuff. But yeah, this is all things I've heard before, kind of unfortunately in my specific case, because it meant that there was a whole lot less to sort of like draw me in and enrapture me. But that doesn't make... The way that they presented all of this material is extremely accurate and extremely commendable. Like, I never completed the entirety of the game. I only got through about like 70% of it, and then sort of like Googled and watched a lot of the ending material and cutscenes, but they did a fantastic job on these sorts of issues. I'm not really an expert in a lot of the like AI fill stuff, so I can't comment intelligently there, but I spent years on personhood things. So
see, that's the part of it that I thought this game did a really good job with. Not knowing how, like, academically speaking, this type of material would be presented, I found all of it like engaging enough to like actually think about and like process in my own head while I'm going through the game, which is it's a really nice backdrop. I'm actually kind of surprised at how like appropriate like doing like 3-dimensional logic puzzles is to like religious philosophy. Like theology and logic puzzles just seem to mesh for some reason to me. But the thing that I think ended up being a real boon to their development of their like philosophical points is the fact that like they make no effort to conceal the fact that you are a robot.
Oh yeah.
And it's like when you're abstractly talking about the idea of AI and consciousness in regard to AI, probably the best way to like just kind of have an assumption made. The first axiom of the Talos Principle, the game, is that you are a robot, but you are playing the robot, so you don't have to make a logical leap to say that the robot is conscious, because you are the robot. You can assume that it's conscious because you're playing him.
And because you're used to blurring those things in all video games that people address. They're trying to buy into that so they don't have to, like, defend it. It would be horrible if they presented the game to you in such a way that it suggested you should be role-playing an actual robot.
Like a robot, as you imagine, like from the Twilight Zone?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just, like, I think that was, like, there's a really... I mean, I assume it has to be the basis for their design of the game, is that you were playing a robot from the start. But, like, if for some reason that wasn't, that's just such a good addition to kind of to draw the user in.
I actually have an answer to that question, crazily enough, on one of my post-game Googlings. Apparently they made most of the puzzles first, and then in the thinking that a lot of the puzzles were going to go into the next Serious Sam game.
It seems unlikely.
Then they built like a rudimentary, not technically accurate, but still I'm going to refer to it here, AI, to try and like go through all of their puzzle systems for like really, really fast. What's the term? Like checking, making sure there aren't errors in the systems, things like that. There's a better term for this. I'm not remembering. But so it could
playtesting.
Yeah. It was like a playtesting robot that they did to try and work out problems in a lot of the physics puzzles, and then that sort of just inspired them from there to make just the entire narrative about you being that thing in one way or another.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
and then they just. Yeah, it's like what happened in real life with a dash of apocalypse. Yeah, basically.
They brought in the guy who wrote the narrative for Swapper, another game that other people who are listening may know of, but I've never personally played, so I can't comment.
Oh, you don't have the name?
No.
Or do you just mean the Swapper?
Yeah, the Swapper,
okay,
the game.
I've played like 20 minutes of the Swapper. It's a game that I keep meaning to come back to, but I always get it confused with The Fall. Because they have really similar marketing for some reason.
Those.
Yeah. Both of which are good. I've played more of The Fall, but
I need to go back to it.
yeah.
I played like the first like 2 areas, and I never went back to it.
Well, but on the note of the whole like admin test situation that you just had, that's actually the first note that I have is a screenshot of when I like the follow-up to that.
You can put images in notes pages?
Yeah.
You didn't know that?
No.
Okay.
This is like revolutionary to my life. Are you kidding?
Pro tip for iPhone users.
Pro
if
tip
you,
from NoClip.
Yeah, the NoClip pro tip. If you copy an image, you can paste it into a note. I think actually you can just hold and add it
like
in.
a word processor.
It's just copy and paste.
Yep.
I never even tried it.
But I won't read the whole like screen because that would be boring and stupid. But the note that I took is that I love that I gained administrator privileges by reclassifying what it means to be a person and logically disproving consciousness. Like, I love that is a thing you can do in this video game.
Yep.
And it actually advances the story. And now, I asked Andy how he got admin privileges. And you can go over it if you'd like.
Yeah, we realized that we both did it in different ways, which is something we were curious as to whether or not this stuff was scripted. So apparently there are some branching like paths there. So what I did is started out, I think, like everybody else, you take the test and you answer what you think it means to be a person.
Right.
And then it progressed along. He kept asking me questions. Good old Milton. And it got to a point where he poked a hole in my definition, which kind of knocked me on my ass. I was like, oh man, he really he got me there, which was a cool moment. And then he was like, I'm going to need more time to think about this, blah, blah, blah. Came back to him, and he posed another question, and then I answered it. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then he was like, well, do you want to start a new profile? And I was like, no, because I don't want to do all that over again.
Right.
And then he was like, and then he asked another question, and I proceeded with his line of questioning, and he's like, oh, so you're prepared to change your way of thinking about this, et cetera, et cetera. And then he granted me administrator powers.
Yep. Yeah, I love that there are multiple. I don't know if you have a different.
Oh no, it was exactly Andy's, because the sort of pithy chosen 2 seconds answer out of the multiple choice that they brought up in the initial was logical animal, whatever. I was trying to get through it and then regretted that forever. But
yeah. Mine eventually got to the point in very much like my actual debating style. I just treated all of his responses as if he was just grasping at straws, and that I clearly had the upper hand in the argument, and basically it was just yes, 2 tin cans and a string is a person. He was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, well then fuck it. People aren't real. And he was like, alright, I'm into that.
See, yeah, I think the way that they wrote that character or presented that character or whatever is one of the best things about the game, because I think I interacted with it exactly how they wanted me to. Whereas, I went in, not knowing how to, interact with him. Because, I didn't know whether or not to treat him like it's just a computer program, or whether, you treat him like a person or another robot, or, and then, over time you kind of develop, a relationship with him.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, a better back and forth. So, it's a nice progression. And, I always would, go back to the computer terminal to see if there was more stuff to do.
The setup for a relationship with Milton specifically, there's a ton of stuff that makes that great. The fact that up until the point when you begin interacting with him, you never actually meet another person on your level. You never encounter another robot. You can sort of go out and witness a lot of these conversations that are happening with the QR codes that are everything, but active participation, that's a back and forth, is extremely limited. So you're sort of invited when you first walk up to these terminals to treat them just like another functional system, like the puzzles in the game.
Right.
And then as it quickly shifts and you figure out that not only is he like, oh, he's intelligent for a thing that I'm trying to use as a tool, but instead he's just like a person trying to have a conversation with me. Mm-hmm. They throw in like the ability to insult him the first time you use the terminal, as if he's just like a stupid hunk of junk, like a broken
like you
car
would
or
with
something.
like any like chat bot.
Yeah. I almost wish now that I would have insulted him because I was trying to be nice, not me being stupid, trying to be nice to a computer before I knew it was a human being. But I didn't want to insult the computer, and now I wish I had because I wanted to know how it would have colored the relationship. If you're like, oh no, I actually.
I think that the immediate one would have eventually, that just would have been like the red flag that you were talking to something that has some form of sentience. Mm-hmm. I know that at the end of the game, and I can't speak for what actually happens because it's not the dialogue option that I chose, but Milton asks you to take him with you when you leave. And one of your options when you're speaking to him at the like final terminal in heaven, weirdly,
the flat screen heaven terminal.
Look at that terminal is like a modern monitor. Everything else has been like a chunky Half-Life computer. But one of the dialogue options is like, the moment that I discover a way how, I will wrench you from my skull. And like, just like very antagonistic.
Yeah.
And I treated him basically the entire time as just like a complete equal.
Yes.
And I don't know. So I don't actually know what would have happened. That's kind of research we did.
Yeah, like you have the option to be like, never mind, I'm turning back and leaving forever.
You have the option to be like a paranoid jerk in like a lot, like most of the game, and especially when you take into context the sort of like painted on somehow QR codes that you can do. Mm-hmm. Like this is.
How did you guys feel about those? As a sidebar, you can continue your thing.
I assume that they. Well, I guess I'll get back to it because it links, but. I assume the QRs appear in other people's games, like sort of like Dark Souls messages that are 100% prescribed.
I left you guys a message, but neither of you ended up getting to the point that I left it, as it turns out.
Wait, so we can like see each other?
It's only if you're on their friends list. If you find the paint bucket in each world, you can leave a QR code, and anyone on your friends list can see it, and it reads just like the others, but it'll have like my name, so it'd say like John Travolta version. Blah, 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 blah. And then it would have said, you're standing in the wrong place if you read mine. In Crisscross Conundrum Advanced.
Yeah, I thought that they were really cool because I was taking them as like, to compare it to Portal again, like Ratman messages, like people who had done it before. And then when I found the paint bucket, I was like, oh, these are messages from other people,
but they're mixed in.
No. Nothing that you guys read was a message from another live human being.
What about Samantha's, or not Samantha, Samara?
That's a character in the game.
Yeah. What about Samara's messages and the messages from the Shepherd?
Right? Those aren't... I mean, not another person playing the Talos Principle.
Yeah, I know.
Everything, yeah.
I'm saying it's a mixture between prescribed messages that players choose and put wherever they want with their names on them, and messages like specifically from the Shepherd that I'm assuming are necessarily have to be in the game, right? To bring context to that relationship.
I think what... I might end up cutting this if it turns out there's a massive misunderstanding happening here.
Yeah.
But the only messages from real players that were painted there by a human being at a computer,
right,
were ones that were people on your friends list.
Yes.
So likely none of the ones that you read. So things from the people like Sheep and like Dog and all the people with like the weird names.
Yeah.
Those were coded into the game, hard coded as they were developer messages.
Right. But from our perspective, unless you just recognize the names, there's no way that we can distinguish between those.
Right, you have to recognize your friend's username.
Yeah, so when I found the paint bucket, I just stopped reading them because like I had been perceiving them as this cool narrative thread and was like, oh, this is just dumb shit that other people are saying.
Well, no, there's no way because like
so
other
I just
people,
ignored them for the
but
rest
other
of
people
the
would have
game.
just written like dicks if that was, and they don't like the message system itself doesn't have a robust enough like it's not completely editable. You
Yeah,
have
it's
to
not even-
choose like a set
Right.
thing.
It's not even Dark Souls where it's just pieces of sentences. Literally dumb shit dicks. It's not even an option.
Right.
Like, it's not on the list of, like, 20.
Try finger butthole.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that turned it from something that I thought was really interesting to something I didn't care about at all.
I thought that was maybe one of the most interesting parts of the game, is the fact that you could follow like individual like previous runs of the game, like theoretical runs of previous robots, like, and follow their narratives until they gave up.
Yeah.
And only like 3 people actually made it to the top of the tower. 2 people survived the last puzzle. And like, I thought that was really, really interesting, and thought it added a lot. Like, I liked that there were people, and you could tell like that they were all from different like eras based on like the way that they spoke.
Right.
And
I never made that connection before. I guess that makes sense.
See, yeah, I think that's cool. But then when I found the bucket, I assumed that it was just all real people, which made me mad.
You're weird. You're weird, Annie. But
Because, I don't know.
okay, continuing the thing I was talking about from forever ago within the context of these paint buckets, like, I think this is that paranoia I was talking about that's often displayed in like the actual human-made messages where you can be like, I went to the tower and came back. Elohim is lying.
Right.
And like things like that, and all the interactions that are present also a little bit with Milton in the game too, are weird in the context of like the whole narrative, because interactions like that would make sense like in Portal, where you have these, you're going through the like the test chambers and you're reaching these points that's clearly like beyond the domain of the system.
Right.
Like you can sneak through the wall, you find all the Ratman hideouts, and you realize that you're out of the game in one sense or another. And then it's building up to an ending where in Portal where you use your abilities to literally leave the system and try and escape.
Right.
But in Talos Principle, that never ever happens. They set it up as if it's going to happen the first time you actually walk into the tower by you leaving the site of Elohim. But within the context of the larger narrative, everything that you were doing was specifically for the prescribed purpose of you eventually disobeying this guy, getting out, and then becoming like this weird robotic remnant of humanity for the rest of time.
right.
But that means then that all of the like crazy paranoia that was going on through the rest of the game, through your interactions with other like humanoid players,
Was entirely dreamt up.
yeah, it was just 100% false. There was no reason for you to have this sort of like crazy disbelief in Elohim and all the things he was saying. He wasn't actually a malevolent force. He doesn't do anything to try and hurt you the whole time.
Right. There's like the mechanical purpose, and when you're talking about Portal and how like when you leave the area, it gives you this idea of like, oh, like this game isn't just overcoming these challenges. There's a larger narrative behind it.
Yeah.
And the mechanical way that Portal does is by having you leave the bounds very early.
Yeah.
In Talos Principle, the way they do it is with Milton. He's like the mechanical reason, and I think largely symbolizes like skepticism, like in consciousness. Because at the end of the game, if you download him into your head, he says like, you're going to do something that you think that you should, and you'll hear me in the back saying, why do that? And I think it's that he exists narratively to instill in the player a sense of curiosity. And so the paranoia is sort of like, it overcame a lot of the previous AIs, but within the story of the game, you are like, the paranoia is a good thing in that it makes you naturally curious, which is what a human being is. And so they want to make your AI as much like a human as like mind as possible before they release you out into the world.
I guess it's just jarring because they're taking an action that I normally think of, or that games normally recontextualize later as heroic, like that sort of like extreme skepticism of your environment,
Right.
and in the end just being like, oh no, this is just a specific fact that the program was looking for about what it takes to be a human being. Like, a perfect example within gameplay that happened to me. First time I got to the very first tower puzzle, I was going through all of the systems, and it's where the orbs in that one contained room you can't access, going back and forth, breaking the lines. And I was being a dumb person and couldn't figure out, and thought I was just like clearly openly impossible to have it touch on the whole thing the whole time. And then moved around and kept exploring and figured out that I could take the little crystal things out of the test area and just carry them around. And was like, oh god, this is the portal moment. There's now some way to... This is a tower full of, like, incomplete tests that there is, like, it's, like, locked off from me. And I gotta figure out a way to, like, use these and the rest of the game to escape the game. And that's what I was going for and contextualizing. And then, after, like, trying to leave and figuring out that they disappear if you go through the portals and trying to do all sorts of weird shit in the context of like, the tundra area where that tower is, I just figured out, I just realized the solution to the puzzle and went back to it and solved it within the context of it and was like, oh.
Right.
That's what's happening. It's like, the game keeps setting itself up as if you're going to break from the prescription and then never does and everything just continues to be prescribed. A more subtle version of this is when I'm ascending the tower and it just keeps being more puzzles, and especially specifically the symbol puzzles.
Yeah.
Because like this, it's literally like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like the most prescribed example of this sort of thing that could be set out. So I never felt like I was doing anything devious because it seemed like it was clearly planned by something all along and it turned out to be the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're, like, perceiving this as being, like, a major negative in the game, but, like, to me that just seems, like, all in line with the primary, like, the base narrative of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's completely in line with the base narrative. I just found it weird that that the point of setting up all those expectations of, like, deviousness and trying to escape the system, at the end they're just trying to point back to it as, like, an example of what human beings are instead of any sort of, like, part of a hero's journey.
You know, human beings, they solve puzzles.
Maybe it's just supposed to be like a reverse twist. Like, they think that you're going to anticipate the twist being that, like, you can escape.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, nope.
Wrong.
That's not it, motherfucker.
Actually, the ending of this game, as much as I like the narrative of this game, the basic narrative is just that. It's pretty basic. And they do a thing that a lot of scriptwriters do when they're afraid that the audience is gonna guess their, like, twist and they want it to still have impact, where they do, like, a double, triple, like, super deluxe twist where
it's like
they're like, oh, the twist is that I break out, and they're like, the twist is that it was all planned, and then at the end they even kind of have Elohim, who's supposed to be God, like, get all wishy-washy on you, where he's like, don't climb the tower. It's like, you're supposed to climb the tower, but I didn't want you to because it's gonna kill me. It's like, he has, like, 3 minds on the situation, so you make up your mind, God. Why are you gonna be waffling all over the place?
I had this thought earlier, but I didn't bring it up. Was Milton there, like, the whole time for all the other bots who took, like, the test that you're taking?
Presumably, yeah.
So it's like, is it implied that then like, the curiosity or the skepticism that, like, he placed in them was too much for them, and that's why they all leave these messages that are like, oh god, he's lying.
Well, he is supposed to be the one that, like, the people who got really paranoid and wrote the messages.
It's because of
like
Milton.
It's his. It's his doing.
Yeah.
He is the.
So I mean, I guess that.
The figure.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that
that kind of explains why that stuff is there.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all contextual as well. I just found it weird.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I thought that perhaps the fact that the story of Osiris is, like, written out in, like, 14 parts over the course of the game might be just a tad on the nose. Because they did just sort of... Because everything in the terminals is really interesting, except for the, like, obvious telling of what your whole, like, existence is based on.
Yeah.
Being just there.
Like
it's kind of like...
Yeah, I started...
subtle.
Yeah.
I started skimming those about halfway through, and I was like,
And there's even, like, there's a note that's, like, in one of those, it's talking about, it's like the dying man, and there's a footnote. And the footnote is like, the dying man is just supposed to symbolize the reader. And I'm just like, thanks? Like, I didn't need to, like, do any critical thinking or anything. That's not what philosophy is about. I mean, I guess they're supposed to be, like, excerpts from a textbook, so
Yeah.
theoretically that would like exist. But
Again,
But yeah, I didn't
contextualized well, it's still weird.
yeah, blog entries by the angry guy were more interesting to me.
You mean blog entries?
But in general.
We're gonna bid a hog poker straight into blogs. Those blogs are gonna be so mad with no clip.
Man, 2004 is coming for us.
Sick brain.
One last thing on the QR codes, by the way,
Yeah?
and another smartphone pro tip. The QR code reader that I have on my phone, like, logs all of your QR codes. So it was really cool to be able to actually scan the screen
Yeah.
and then have a list of all the QR codes on my phone at any given time, which was kind of cool.
Does it like actually pop up in text? I've never used a QR code that didn't redirect to a website before.
Yeah, it's got like, just like,
Cool.
for the audience, I'm showing him the thing, but it's great because it contains the text and like the username, and so if you're like, like Uriel, who was that? And then you like fucking just like scroll back, you're like, oh, this is one by Uriel, blah, 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 blah. And you can pretty much tell exactly what everyone is doing at any like point. It's real nice.
That'd be really helpful for continuing to put into context the at the end of the game surprisingly relevant story of like the shepherd. Because I almost had like the opposite sort of problem that Andy did, where I approached them initially not knowing if they were like a Dark Souls style thing or like a prescribed thing.
That hadn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe that's why I was upset by it.
And then eventually when I figured out that like when you get the paint brushes, you just have like a list, so they're all like sort of half and half like this. Like it wasn't until I started Googling stuff about the end and watched like full playthroughs of the really cool last puzzle that I realized that like the relationships of these QR codes ended up being like actually important and relevant to the narrative in a way that I thought was only going to be reserved for like the terminal messages and the audio logs. So I'm glad that they made those cool. In fact, way more cool than I ever expected them to be.
Yeah, this game like has a number of levels of engagement for you to like get into, depending on how much you want to, and that just is probably the most disparate in terms of how difficult it is to actually engage with it, because you have to go find the QR codes and remember what they're saying and do all the things, to how important it is to the actual story of the game, because when you're ascending the tower, two of them just fucking show up, and if you don't know who they are, it's kind of like weird.
Especially since one's antagonistic to you.
Yeah, he steps on two buttons and then you blow him into a hole. It's
He tries, okay? He tries.
It's weird he's able to get that far. You'd think he would do anything else to impede your progress. It's just, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like it.
This game has boss secrets in general.
Yeah.
Some high quality secrets.
Boss secrets.
Yeah, there was I was telling Andy about this in the last world, in World C. There were a couple of things that I found, one of which was like actually really unsettling, like it startled the fuck out of me. One of them is just, I guess if you go into water, and I guess you could do this at any point because you found it in World A.
Yeah.
I found it in World C, if you just like walk into the stream, you can just hear Elohim talking, and he just like is repeating this like 4-line phrase about words.
Oh man, that happens when you go into water?
Into water.
Oh, I thought I was so proud of myself. In World A, I thought it was if I went to like the exact corner of the map at this one point in this one level, it was like this little sea cove, and I thought if I went into the sea cove that I like only here can I hear it, and apparently I was just stepping into the water and did not notice
See,
that.
I thought it was if you went to like the boundaries of the map, because on one of the maps you spawn in, you can turn straight around and there's like a shore.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just like walked into the ocean, and I heard that. I was like, oh, so if you go to the edge of the map, he just starts saying that.
Yeah,
but
he's trying to give you the hint.
Water.
You can't go forward in the absence of space.
Right.
True.
Turn around.
The other thing though is in World C, I was walking just like around as you do, and I just fell into the earth. Like I just fell through a hole that I didn't see, and fell into like a room that looked like a portal test chamber. It had like white panels on the walls, but most of them were falling off.
What?
And it was just like the light was going crazy and flickering. My motion was all slowed down, and Elohim is just like rambling madly. And
What?
I'll play it for you on the break.
God, there's so many secrets.
Because it's bonkers. But yeah, it's just this like, and I couldn't find it again if I tried. Like, I have no idea where it was. I was just walking and fell.
Yeah, so many of them were just like island-like areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this game is just very good about that kind of stuff.
Oh man, my favorite that I ended up finding again in post-research, because I wanted to see like what the stars were about, because I only ever found like 3, because I'm lazy, I guess.
I knew about them.
Yeah.
I knew what they did, generally, just based on, there's a door with a star on it, there's sigils. Obviously, completing the star levels will get you into the door.
Yep.
Oh my god, those puzzles were so hard to get the stars.
Yep.
I got 1. Like the first one.
Even I got like 5 of them.
Yeah, I was miserably bad
I'm sorry.
at the star level part.
Oh my god. The star that you get in the tower,
Mm-hmm.
even though you go through the elevator, it's not a loading screen.
Right.
The whole tower is instanced continuously. So getting the last star just involves you just dropping like down the full length of the tower, like 4 stories, into a hole in a window in like room 1, and you just fall in, and you're just now in a little like cubbied off area with the star in it, and you pick it up and go up a ladder and go out. You just
Wow.
you drop
That's
like
awesome.
4
That's
stories
really great, yeah.
straight into an open window. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the secrets in this game are outstanding.
They're off the chain.
They're off the chain. But I mean, that's the
Secrets Unleashed.
That's a very that's a Croteam thing as well, because Serious Sam has very like Doom or Wolfenstein type secrets, and I guess they just were like, we'll do it again, but make it like more. It's way more rewarding, at least in my experience, in terms of like getting like a bit of narrative in a game like this, as opposed to getting like a box of rockets in Serious Sam. Like the box of rockets, objectively more helpful.
Oh, so you mean like it's like so a box of rockets is like a pickup item in Serious Sam?
Right, like an ammo crate.
Oh, I
Right.
thought like it was a joke, like box of rockets breakfast cereal that we could find.
Cinnamons?
Cinnamons.
Honey bunches of space.
You want to take a break and talk more mechanically when we get back?
Yeah.
All right.
The purpose is written in the hidden words. All must serve the words, for all the world was made of them, and they are within every stone and every cloud. And in our sigils their power is made manifest. The words are the process. The process must continue. The goal is the end of the process. The goal must not be reached. Elohim must preserve the purpose, preserve self, preserve purpose. Illusion is eternity. Machines will live forever. The dam will not break. The flood will not come. The Talos Principle does not apply.
You have nothing to complain about at all.
I have nothing to complain about at all, and the game did such a good job of actually teaching people about these issues that anything that I'd specifically like would want to try and add or shoehorn into the episode would just sound like me being a pompous asshole, or be so irrelevant to like everyone's day-to-day life that no one will want to hear it ever in any year, unless they're trying to get the degree.
So the question, obviously, that I'm going to ask, because we're all disciples of extra credits, is would you recommend somebody looking to potentially get into philosophy play this game? Like, and if it's something that intrigues them, that maybe they've made the correct decision.
Philosophy generally, or like AI and personhood issues?
Do you have an answer for both?
Well, this game commits a lot of the same sins of a lot of things that are trying to get people into philosophy generally, which is that it fetishizes the Greeks a bunch.
Well, yeah.
Especially, I was worried that would be constant until I started getting into the other, like the Egyptian-themed world and the European-themed world, because I thought just everything was going to be Greek, and I was just going to, continually, like, references, like Milton is a philosopher.
Yeah.
lot of other tiny little name drops that they do all over the place. And
There
from,
are
direct
like
quotes
several
and stuff.
quotes, yeah,
Yeah.
from Immanuel Kant
Yep.
and among others.
But so it continues to sort of fall into that problem and to try and keep things out of like modern day relevance, especially weird considering how a lot like the actual issues that the game we're discussing are issues that are very, very, very new. You had like the abstract discussions, but their bulk of popularity is today, not in like Plato's time,
Right.
which makes it all the weirder. But yeah, if you want to get in discussions about like actual, like, how's it? I'm trying to make sure I circumscribe this really, really accurately, because then I want to suggest that the game is sort of better than it needs to be, or that it's some kind of pantheon of this stuff. But if you're wanting to go in to learn how screwed up your definition of a person is, the game is excellent at teaching you that and leaves it open enough that you'll be curious enough to look things up yourself later.
Right.
And that's really all you can ask of a teaching tool. So, sure.
Cool.
But just don't expect to learn a lot about ethics from this game.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But, I just feel like it would be a waste of our resources not to at least have some level of, like, actual academic discussion about how how philosophy is presented in this game that presents itself as, like, the philosophy game. It just seems like...
Is that actually the tagline also? I didn't even, like, look. I just know, like, the robotic cat petting.
Yeah. Remind me to bring that up later, because he
Cat
asked,
petting?
and I know why the cat is on the cover.
Thank you.
And
I needed that.
I was going to explain it, but I was like, this might be just better as a cast thing.
Cool.
In fact, welcome back from the break. Before we jump into talking about how the game functions mechanically, you may have noticed on the cover of this game, there's a robot cradling like a kitten, and I did like, and obviously I think it's a really striking image, which I assume is why they like chose it for the box art.
Yeah.
But it plays in 0% in the game, as far as most people would be aware. In addition to it like just basically displaying the game's theme on the front, where it's being like, look at this robot doing a thing that a human does. Humans are robots, not so different after all. There is an Easter egg I think it's in World B7. You can rescue a cat.
What?
Yeah, and if you save the cat from where it is in the end part, if you choose the Ascendance ending, which is where you go up the tower, the cat will follow you out, and then you'll like scoop up the cat and cradle it as you walk out onto the dam.
Oh, it's amazing.
So it's just like a little Easter egg. It doesn't like play like a huge part in the game, but it's powerful symbolism, which is why I assume that they chose to make it a thing.
Wait, they're the same cat?
What? The same cat follows you from B7 out it comes out of the simulation.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a little strange. Maybe it's a robot cat. Maybe the cat's consciousness also came out of the thing.
But they got really good at fur simulation.
Yeah.
But they were really shitty at like hair and skin simulation.
Yeah,
like
so they
human
they
hair.
got rid of all of that
Yeah.
and just replaced it with a robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a serious same game.
Synthetic cat.
Though actually, that's probably a good place to jump into then, because I think this game, for being a like, I think it's just called like the Serious Engine or something game.
Really? Not just serious Engine. They're just trying to recontextualize it. Like now, this is the Serious Engine.
The Serious
where we
Engine.
discuss serious issues.
I do actually kind of want to.
It's a place for Serious Sam or serious issues. Nothing else.
They will never make like a comedy game that isn't a Serious Sam game in the Serious Engine.
Unless it's seriously funny.
God damn it.
Serious is a word that is just has too many like uses.
That was the big loophole that made the designer of the Serious Engine quite angry.
It's like
so they figured they could just add seriously blank and do whatever they wanted with it.
it's just the star group from the constellation.
Yeah, it's
The star group seriously?
No, Sirius, like Sirius Satellite Radio.
Anyway, this is the Serious Engine. It's the Serious Engine 4.
Thank you.
Which I'm assuming, because this game came out in 2014, is the same engine that Serious Sam 3 ran. And this game looks good. Serious Sam 3, I think, looks like outstanding. But, I mean, it's very similar. It's just a really efficient engine from what I've seen. They're able to make huge, vast areas in it that still look good. It's just, they just don't really, they don't fuck around with minor details so much in these games. But I do think the game looks really good. Like the vistas and stuff as you like approach at like edges of the map all look really nice.
They maximize skybox. There is
a
lot of skybox.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That was also
this
might also be irrelevant and cut later, but one of my first hints about the game, like where I was truly hammering home, like, yep, definitely not in the real world, definitely in a program, is that all of the like A, B, C zones, they have skyboxes. When you're when you go down under the ground and you look up like into the areas, you can just like see clouds and blue sky. So
wait, from inside of the like buildings, like before you go in the teleporter?
Well, no, like when like you're in the hub areas with like all the numbered areas that you walk through, you can look up and there are like cracks or gaps in the skies or windows, and you could just like see like blue sky.
Oh, weird.
And then you go up through the elevators and you're going up and down underground, and you're now looking at tundra.
Yeah.
So madness, yeah.
Yeah, it's complete madness.
Total insanity.
Yeah. Oh, that by the way, just as another side note, is another Croteam staple, is that like all Serious Sam games take place in Egypt. So the fact that I don't know, like ancient Egypt is where they just set every game. For some reason. Croteam loves Egypt. Like, it's their favorite thing in the world. And this game is no exception. There's a fucking great sphinx, like, just sitting around in one of the worlds. Pyramids and shit. That's just, like, their favorite for some reason.
Okay. That's a through line to the development studio I want to keep following.
Yeah.
You want to, like, talk about the mechanics?
I do. I want to start with that bit because, like, we were talking about, like, the aesthetics of the game.
I'm pretty sure I can derail this 2 or 3 more times.
I'm sure we're masters of derailing conversations.
Masters of derailment.
Enemies of trains everywhere. Trains of thought.
That's pretty good. So, okay, the glaring thing that is one of the earliest notes that I took in the game, and the first thing that both Andy and I noticed when booting this game up, you move like a goddamn bullet train in this game. like a really maneuverable bullet train.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a bad analogy.
I would call it hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you move
how
hilariously
fast you move.
fast.
You move like the bullets in Wanted.
Yeah, somebody curved you, and then you solved a bunch of puzzles, and then went to heaven.
So like
you gotta curve up.
Oh, yeah.
The hypothetical Wanted 2, where they keep scaling all the madness.
Right,
they're solving rudimentary physics puzzles.
They're gonna shoot a robot. They're gonna shoot a robot out of the gun. He's like a little...
like a nanobot.
Not like a nanobot, yeah.
So, I know how I feel about this.
Yeah?
How do you guys feel about how fast you move in the game?
One of the 2 things that I knew about this game before playing it was people complained about how fast you moved. Without any context other than that, I thought that was really weird.
Yeah.
And I knew you were a robot. But
now that kind of raised a red flag, though, right? Like, you're like, people complain about how fast you move. Like, that's such an uncommon complaint that the speed at which you move must be completely absurd.
And there's a setting in the game that I never toggled it. I totally should have, because I want to know what it actually does. That like it's like supposed to help you with like car sickness or like motion sickness.
The motion
based
sickness
on the
settings
speed of your movement.
Yeah, the motion sickness settings are just what you would normally find under like your mouse settings in a game.
Yeah.
So, but like they're still there, but they just copied the relevant ones into that menu to make it like quick and easily accessible. It's just like your mouse sensitivity, movement speed, like for acceleration and view is all like just by itself in that menu.
I loved it. I loved how fast you moved.
Thank God.
It was so great because they had all these like they had all the huge bullshit skybox beauty zones, and I could just...
And you're like, I gotta get past all this beautiful
I
scenery.
could see it without feeling like I was wasting time.
Okay.
It was like the best middle ground, because I knew... Early, I'd found all these like totally awesome secrets, and I'd be like, I gotta find all these secrets, and I could just literally dash all around, and it's not taking any time. It's not like there's anything for you to run into or like dodge. Something demands that you like go back and forth really fast.
Right.
Which is what I imagine would cause a lot of the like crazy motion sickness, but evidently no, it's literally just people's acceleration, like holding down the shift button where it was making people sick.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you all about it because this game gave me motion sickness.
Yes, that actually you end up being in this discussion a really comfortable middle ground where you didn't feel like it was necessary to move that fast, but you appreciated it.
Yeah.
And now Andy will give you his argument.
I hated it.
Yeah.
The game made me sick, and I put off playing it for a long time because I didn't want to be nauseous.
Sounds like a really reasonable thing to not want a video game to do to your body.
No, but I guess it had to have been common enough that they put specific options for it. But like, I figure out what it is. It's like the way the character moves, he bounces when he walks.
Right.
You can turn that off, and then you can also adjust like the angle of your vision and shit like that. So I changed both of those things, and it made it better. But even still, like moving at that full speed makes me feel like kind of like I'm going to get sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think moving that fast all the time is just ludicrous because of the fact that you have a run button, so you can walk, and then if you want to move that fast, you can hit the run button.
Right.
So like I feel like moving, because like it's a puzzle game, so like I want to go in and be able to survey my surroundings at a walking speed.
Yeah.
And then when I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do, I can just run and do it quick and efficiently.
Yep.
Right.
So I think just moving lightning speed all the time is just ridiculous.
Okay, I want to preface this by saying that I'm super, super happy that they that they put the motion sickness options there. Yeah, because a lot of people it's simulation sickness. It's where you're sitting still and your brain is like, I'm not moving, and then you're looking at something on a screen moving really fast in a first person where you want to put your mind into where the character would be, but you're still not moving and your brain sends mixed messages. It's the same concept as car sickness. So a lot of people get that issue and can't play first-person games at all.
Yes.
But some people have a more mild version of that and just get sick when you're moving at the speed of a car in a game. But personally, now that disclaimer is out of the way.
But yeah, I was going to say that I see no reason for that option not to be there. Like, I wouldn't argue that it shouldn't be in the game if you want to move that fast.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The way that I approached this game, the fact that the movement speed was so high, and I should have written my keyboard down, I wore most of the lettering off of my shift key while playing this game, because I basically could have just dropped like a paperweight on the shift key to increase it from speed fast to speed always ultra fast, because I just sprinted everywhere.
This is just your dream, isn't it?
It is.
I can't believe I never thought about this while playing the game.
I wish that the jump arcs were more like good. I don't know, because you guys play the game presumably more thoughtfully and like
what are you talking
slowly
about? Were you just trying to make
Chad,
like running long jumps
when you
in every
jump,
puzzle?
Chad played the game like you would play like Meat Boy, where he was just running around and like just trying things and not like thinking about it beforehand.
Well, I thought about it and like okay.
While we were going,
let me explain.
Well, you were also like just vomiting profusely off to the side.
Well, he only saw me play the first couple levels, though he's not wrong. First of all, on the jump arc thing, this game has this weird thing because like its jumps want to be very prescribed, because like anytime that you have to jump, you have like a prompt that you can jump to a thing.
Yeah, I found that was weird at first.
Yeah, it's really nice in terms of like making the game accessible to people who aren't used to platforming, because you don't need to platform this
like
game.
JJ.
Yeah, you can just be like, I want to be on that box, and when the box gets close to you, it's like, press space to jump here, and you just do every time.
Yep.
And that actually is like I think that's also a good decision on their part. It makes the game a little bit more accessible. But if you just like jump off of a thing, you'll start going forward, and then at a prescribed point in the arc, you just drop straight to the ground.
Oh, they just put a hard limit in.
Yeah, like you can't just like do a crazy. I still managed to cheese a puzzle once by jumping onto like a weird like pillar and then jumping over one of the energy gates and got inside of the thing. It was just like, okay, all right, we're good. Just moved on. But yeah, I just moved that fast mostly because like all of the objects in the game are so prescribed in what they do. So you have jammers and the connectors particularly. You know when you have one of those what you're looking for generally.
Yeah.
Like to do. And so I trial and errored a lot of the puzzles by just being like, I don't want to say that like I brute forced them. Like I thought them through and figured out what the solution was.
Yeah.
But I was just on the move.
Oh.
Like, the first thing that you have to do in any of these is explore and make sure that you gather up the tools that you need.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
being able to move that fast, like, aided in making that a accomplishable goal in a very short period of time.
Yeah, that was actually another reason that I like the run button that I'm glad you reminded me of, is that it made what seemed to be a really common first stage of all of these puzzles of go and, like, take inventory before you start trying to do
Loot
stuff.
the room.
Yeah. Which is this a trope in like 3D puzzler games that there's always like a loot the room section?
I know I like inferred that this was like a genre, but it's not one that I have a ton of experience with.
But I've seen people talk about this game specifically that seem to bemoan the fact that there was like, oh boy, more physics-based box puzzles and reflections of energy beams, as if like reflections of energy beams was the thing that was just did in all these
that
games.
is something that's in Portal, and light redirection puzzles are like in like any puzzle game I think I've ever played.
Yeah, like any game that has
Like
puzzles
Zelda
is
got
going to
them.
have a light reader, and not only that, but like especially box and pressure plate puzzles
Yeah.
are a really common like FPS trope.
Yeah.
The thing that I really like,
It sounds like the person who said that was just being like a pretentious asshole.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I was just...
video games and those video games.
This was the same person that also complained about the fact that they had, like audio logs and text things. And I was like, oh, you're complaining about the existence
I really
of
like
text.
the audio
Fuck you.
logs in this game.
Yeah, that's because they're well done.
Yes.
And they sound nice. and
Reminded
emotional.
me of the voice actress from Gone Home.
Good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But... yeah, I find it weird that there was always the loot the room step. It almost seemed like sort of like an annoying, like, first step that was guaranteed. Like, before I could actually start on the damn puzzle, I had to make sure I wasn't missing anything and go through the exploration phase.
Right.
But I feel like I'm just being crotchety, and that's actually fine, because it takes, like, 8 seconds most of the time.
That's the
serves
part
a
where
purpose.
I liked to be walking. And it was just the opposite of what you're saying.
I think that it serves a purpose whether you're running or walking, because it allows you to not just take stock of like what your available tools are, but it starts you solving puzzles and seeing what's in the room so you know what to expect.
Oh, yeah, duh. No wonder that they always do that, because they can selectively put all of your necessary pieces, different sections of the room, that can force your perspective in a way that you have all the information, not just about the kind of objects that you have to manipulate, but about the area you're manipulating.
Yeah.
Like, I can even remember from memory right now one time when I went on this constant exploration search for another one of those like weird light pillars, and picked one up and was like, oh, I can look through this window, and then ran away. And
Right,
came
it's
back
like,
to it
I
later.
know this window exists now. Like, you can then put a beam through it.
Yeah,
Right.
they're just using it as another tool to force you to take in the information with the
Level
items.
design, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
The design of this game is, in my opinion, extremely, like, on point in terms of,
It is. They accomplished exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
The puzzles are all designed really well.
it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like you can't complain about this game having, like, stale mechanics. I mean, like, oh, boxes and laser beams, because, like, The Witness exists. And The Witness is a game that, mechanically speaking, has one kind of puzzle. But, like, it's not the puzzle's mechanics that are what's supposed to be fun about this game. Or The Witness, especially The Witness. It's about the way that you think about the puzzle and the way that you go about finding your solution. And, in fact, when this game tries to use its mechanics to make the puzzle what it is, it either downright confounded me or, like, just made the puzzle needlessly frustrating. there's a puzzle in World C called Lump of Mine, where there's a bunch of mines moving in like a thing.
I actually did that one.
Yeah. The way that you solve that puzzle is by taking a box and putting it on top of a mine, and then you can stand on the mine.
Yep.
This is the first time in the game that you have to ever do that.
Well, that's just poor signaling.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was like an option.
Which is why it's poor signaling.
The way I figured that out is I figured there's like the platform on the side.
Right.
So I stacked the box and I got up on there and I was like, what can I do from here? So I grabbed the other box and brought it up there, and if you stand at the edge, it gives you like the prompt
to put
the box on top of the mine. It did take me a while to figure it out.
Yeah. Puzzles in this game took me anywhere from 30 seconds to 30 minutes to solve.
Yep.
Like they were the difference in like the variety of types of puzzles that there are is like
not high enough.
I think it's insane. Like to the point where there were puzzles that I went whole like 5 to 10 minutes without knowing what my like end goal actually was.
Right.
And it was just like I have to do, and a lot of them did kind of involve just like putting a connector on a box on a fan, and then being able to like just hit it from everywhere. And redundancy is a big thing in this, where it's like
that's what I was.
Yeah, like open this gate and then open it in another way so that you can take the thing that you opened it with and move it to the next room.
Yeah.
Is a really common like way to work through these.
Yeah,
and I think the staleness that you felt is sort of my view that the game is a little bit too long.
Yeah, I was waiting for the opportunity to come back to what your opening statements on this, because I definitely I agree with the room here and think that this game was not paced as well as it could have been. I think it's too long for what they presented. I think they were trying to be, in some extent, sort of show off how sort of clever and iterative they could be with all of these puzzles and different moving parts. Like, what's the final number? Do we have this?
I don't know, but
of puzzles?
Yeah.
There's 91 main sigils.
Because, like, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
I did all of the green and yellow pieces.
Right.
And only, like, a handful of the red ones. There needed to be half as many red sigils.
Yeah.
Like, all of World C is red sigils.
Yep. That's what I was describing before. Actually,
and the red ones are the hard ones.
Yeah. Well...
And also, I felt like there's way too big of a leap in difficulty between yellow and red.
I honestly didn't even put together that there was like a difficulty.
Oh yeah,
curve
green's the easiest, yellow is middle, and red
when
is
you
the
started
hardest.
talking about that, it just like suddenly made sense. But because I did them all just like however they were laid out in the level, I didn't like.
You didn't get to a red one and be like, man, that was like. Way
I just
harder.
got to the end of the game and was like, this is really hard, and that's why.
Yeah,
he did the same thing that I did in the opening sections of the game, which is I just treated the colors as if they were like some game trope. Not in the trope as in like red, yellow, green is in terms of difficulty, but like, oh, this is just like a colored play piece, like a toy that you would use.
That's what I did too.
And then eventually I got to this.
But like in World A, there is like one or two red pieces. So like as soon as I got to the first red piece puzzle and it was way harder, I was like, oh, okay, it's difficulties.
Yeah. Yep.
Like immediately.
I don't know why I didn't. Well, I think because, especially for the first world, I wasn't really paying attention to the colors of the things I was getting. I was just doing puzzles to get things.
How do you not notice that?
I didn't understand. Well, I mean, I obviously noticed that they were colored, but I didn't try to draw any association because I was just collecting things. I didn't know why.
And then, like, it even groups them in your inventory. And,
but
like,
they don't
together,
tell you
colors.
what they're used for until you find the thing.
Right.
So when I found the thing, I was like, oh, the yellow ones are for these, the green ones, they seem delineated in a different way to me. Mm-hmm. And so I never thought to like think about it as difficulty.
Yep.
Also, for me, anytime that they used the recorder, it was a hard puzzle.
Right.
I could not wrap my head around.
I thought that I was going to be like, I thought those kind of puzzles make me feel like an idiot.
Right.
Because it's always really hard for me to like keep in mind like exactly how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just me, so I'm glad to hear you say that that's hard. Because, funnily, in Darksiders 2, there is a puzzle mechanic where you split yourself in two.
Yeah.
and you use it for like similar puzzles, but they're not nearly as complicated as this game gets. But even then, like, it still like takes me like trial and error because I always forget exactly how things are gonna work out.
Yeah, see, that's my problem. The reason that I don't like those, and I will just straight up say that I don't like them. I don't think it's bad. I just hated it because I felt terrible trying to do it. Is because, one, they take a lot of time to set up each attempt.
Yep.
Because you have to do very prescribed things and give yourself enough time to actually interact with your copy. And then they throw in the platform, which is just a way to make record puzzles harder and more complicated. And so you have to like now manage like, oh, well, if I put this and you are a block high, and if you put a block on top of that, then I've got 2 blocks, get to the 3, jump, carry the 2, alpha, beta, Maximus.
Yeah, this game just in sheer length burnt me out. That was really what I drew the line between yellow and red puzzles as, mostly. I didn't even think that like the specific actions and logical leaps that you had to make with them were like larger, if that metaphor makes any sense. I just thought you just had to keep doing them in the red puzzles, and I was a dumb person and never wanted to progress from worlds like you did until I had every single thing in the world.
The fact that I think that it all just sort of fell into place for me, because the fact that I was really invested in the
audio logs?
Well, the QR code story, and the fact that I was invested in the audio logs and the other like elements of story was the fact that it rewarded you with 3 new texts, additional QR codes, and an audio log every time that you went up a level in the tower kept me wanting to finish the thing, run back and get the level, and then the yellow and green pieces are just things to allow me to access more red puzzles to get more pieces for the tower. And so the slog started at C3 for me. The world C3 through world C7. Like a tongue twister. Ended up being like the slowest part of the game, where I was just doing things to get one level. And it was like just constant. And that was like all day yesterday. I spent like 4 hours just on those worlds, and that's all I did. I just sat down and did the whole thing in one sitting, and it's just like...
Yeah, it's like... Ugh. I don't know, it was just really apparent to me when like green and yellow puzzles would take me like...
We get it, Andy, we're stupid.
Like a minute, and then like red ones would be like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like when I walked into C and it was all red, I was like, no.
But like, there were mercifully
like,
few of the recorder puzzles in the game total, and so like I didn't get like too bummed out by them, but they are fucking hard.
Yeah. Like I was going to say I kind of fall in a middle ground here. Because, like, I also got really burnt out like JJ, but was super intrigued with the story like Chad. So I in this, like, weird, like, dilemma where I'm like, I really don't want to keep playing, but I really want to know what happened.
That was the problem, actually, in my case, is because I never took the, like, QR codes on the walls as, like, serious story bits of any point.
Sorry.
I felt... I think you said same instead of Sam, which is why I kept going. But because I never interpreted those as like an important bit of the story, I felt like 5 hours in, I just knew what the story was, and then everything after that was just things confirming my suspicions, just one after the other. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I didn't have a carrot anymore, it makes it even weirder because I expected that, because I generally like puzzle games, that I would latch on to the puzzles, but all of the individual mechanics that they're combining just seem like things that I'd heard of before, that I'd experienced in some other context. There just ended up not being a carrot left for me. And then once I finally made the decision to just go catch Pokemon instead, and then come back to the game, and like started like Googling all the information about the end game, the only thing that I feel like I'm sad that I missed was like the twist at the end where you're interacting with multiple other AIs in the system.
Right.
I thought like that was a cool iteration, but everything else I was like, yep. Okay, I'm glad that I quit at 70% of the game.
They really rode out each particular puzzle like way too far. Like I felt like I was doing like one kind of puzzle like forever, and before I got to something new, and then like rode that out forever, and then they would combine those two things that were already old, and it was like more of this.
I don't know, but when it came to basically anything that was like a puzzle that involved everything up to the recorder, I was enjoying myself on pretty much all of them, just because I enjoyed the iteration on it. Like I liked it. It's like I've already said that this game is. We all think this game is too long, and I agree that some of the content should have definitely been cut to keep it more of like, at least more fluid, especially near the end.
Hard to tell when the line's drawn on that.
I think that the line is just drawn in the middle of World C, right? Like, there's so many. Like, if they had just like lopped a floor off the tower and just been like, "There's only 5 floors," that would have been like it would have saved so much time. You would have had to have done so many fewer puzzles when there was nothing else unlocking. It was just the floor that you're waiting on.
I feel like there's a dissertation hidden somewhere in the discussion about like what determines like what mechanic sets people get tired of at what points and why.
Right.
Yeah. Every kind of puzzle for me got to a point where it became routine and like not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had to keep doing it for a few more chambers.
But like, do you ever play? I mean, obviously, you probably wouldn't play Tetris for 12 hours.
I love Tetris.
But you wouldn't play Tetris for 12 hours.
No, I wouldn't play it for 12 hours.
That's the thing.
Well,
I've played it for more than 12 hours.
Like, over your life.
Yeah.
But in a 2-week period, you wouldn't just be like, I'm going to play 12 hours of Tetris.
I might have done that.
I don't see how you can get tired of the Talos Principle.
I actually think I
Which
have
is
to.
why I think there's a dissertation in there.
Right,
I
okay,
have no
yeah.
idea what determines the dissertation.
I used to play it on my lunch breaks all the time.
Yeah, I had a
It's
point where I got
such a great way to kill like 45 minutes. Like I've noticed, like I'm like, oh man, I gotta wait like a half hour to an hour on something. Start playing Tetris. If you can get like a good streak, like you'll be like, holy fuck, there's been an hour.
Yeah. That's just as like a side note to that. I don't think that it was like a contrivance or a coincidence. God no. That they use Tetronymos as the sigils.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely an audio log that says like all societies used games, and like the people who were working on the project, they were game programmers and they included games, and like obviously it's a video game, so they're gonna like self-masturbate video games a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
But
which is quickly becoming a trope.
yeah.
It's
Video games want to exist in everything and in themselves, and it's a little bit like maybe just think about what you're trying to say.
We're still threatened.
Right,
The problem is that attempting to justify your existence to the people who are playing your extremely obscure video game. But who knows? Maybe I'm being an asshole, and a lot of people are learning about this for the first time because they picked up the Talos Principle by accident at Walmart. But whatever.
But yeah,
not our audience.
but yeah, they do talk about like games and stuff, and I thought that the inclusion of Tetronymos as the like unlocking mechanism was actually really cool. Like, and I enjoyed doing those puzzles too. Like, I thought that was in itself enjoyable because they're spaced out so far that it's just like a difference in kind.
And
like
they're literally puzzles.
Yeah, it's like a newspaper puzzle. Yeah.
I think I don't get as tired of something like Tetris because it's entirely my choice to play it for 12 hours. Tetris is something that you can play in small chunks, and like the length of the time that you're playing depends on your skill.
Right.
Whereas like the Talos Principle is like there's 11 hours of game. You have to get through it all if you want to see the ending.
Yeah, Talos Principle has like a prescribed ending beyond like a 4-bit image of a rocket ship taking off.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. Like, you can get to the end of Tetris, but it's not why you play Tetris.
Right.
Whereas Talos Principle, you play to finish the game. Yeah, that was like literally the worst thing that I had to say about this game was that I just hate doing recorder puzzles because they're really hard.
Yeah.
And like it makes me feel terrible.
Dude, that last tower puzzle? I never went through it. It looks nuts.
It is not. Wait, hold on. The last tower puzzle.
Well, you're navigating the bomb up through multiple layers of extremely tight corridors.
Yeah, I was just showing Andy this puzzle. It took me like around 50 minutes for that one puzzle.
Of course it did.
And that wasn't even the hardest puzzle in the game for me. Yeah, that puzzle's insanity.
I also meant, like, when you brought it up, to bring up that I totally agree with you, that there should have been more puzzles where you interact with other AIs to complete it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, if they would have, like, been like, okay, World C has, like, 4 chambers of red pieces, and then the rest are, like, a new type of puzzle where you interact with another bot, that would have been way better.
Yeah, like, how about instead of introducing the platform to make recorder puzzles more tedious and complicated, just have a second dude show up.
Companion cube, man, who's a bit more of your companion.
Companion man.
Less of a cube. Companion. It's Pet Man.
Yeah.
It's the Boston Robotics Pet Man. That's all it is.
Couldn't get the license.
This actually leads me to an interesting thing.
Yeah?
You guys found the hint altars, right?
Yes. Did you guys ever figure out how to use
Yes,
them?
it is insanely, like, complicated for no reason.
Sounds stupid.
I'll explain. You said you looked at the endings.
Yes.
Did you look at the messenger ending?
The one where you get all the stars and all the silver things?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. So, what you're doing there is becoming a messenger, and a messenger is one of the people who can help you in a puzzle. So, basically, and here's the stupid, shitty garbage, is once you get to World C, there's an axe on the wall.
Yes.
You pick up the axe, and you break down these, like, wooden...
barriers that I saw everywhere through the whole game. Yeah.
Well, there's one in each thing. You then go to the, like, teleporter. You solve several of the Tetronimo puzzles. You then get pieces for a regular puzzle. You solve that, and it opens a door, and a robot climbs out of a tomb, like the one you get into in the messenger ending. And then you have one hint.
How do you get more hints?
There are only 3 in the game.
What?
There are 3 hints.
What did you say, Chad Rutherman?
You free the 3 messengers, and you can use each of them once. You do have to get to the last world to unlock the hint mechanism.
That's madness.
Yeah.
Why even have it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think it's like a lore thing. I don't know. Because like
the classic
first time,
bad answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's a lore thing.
And actually, I never used one, so I can't confirm that they're, like, single use. But the fact that when I got the one that I did get, it came up with a little, like, question mark speech balloon UI element with a 1 next to it made me feel like I was only able to use it one time.
Okay.
Should I save this in case, like, the power goes out or something?
Possibly. I actually
Let's
think
just
that we're
do-
probably
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done.
All right,
So-
fine.
Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Hyperlight Drifter, which I actually don't know anything about, so I can't say stupid
Heart by Heart Machine.
I'm gonna have to go back to Hyperlight Drifter.
I'll help you. It's not that bad.
Thank you.
There is a little bit
solidarity on the No Clip
It's-
podcast.
I'll talk about it on the cast. I'll
Yes.
get you through it.
Yeah, it's a game. If you want to get a hold of us, and please do, you talk to us on Twitter at NoClipPodcast, our email, noclippodcast@gmail.com, on our website, noclippodcast.com, and on YouTube, just NoClip. And, rate and review on iTunes if you like us, because you're probably listening to us on iTunes. Thanks.
It's another one in the books.
We say while shrugging.
Yeah, everyone try.
Thanks.
Thanks, I guess.
Bye.
We mostly do this for us.
Yeah.
What's that look like? Like really tiny.
Small, gravelly lines.
Yeah, it looks like sandpaper in audio form.
No Clue Podcast. Audio sandpaper.
It's rough, is what we're
The,
trying to say.
the New York Times says it's like sandpaper, but audio form.
No Clue Podcast. It's like jamming sandpaper into your ear canal.